sports stories in the Sunshine State. Your hosts bringing you the action, Brandon Kravitz, Zac Blobner from the iHeartRadio family of networks. We're on in Orlando, FM 96.9, Miami, 940 Wins, Miami Sports, and Jacksonville, AM 930, The Game. Coming up on the show, I name in-state 30 for 30s. We've all fallen in love with this Last Dance documentary. Well, I've come up with some in-state Last Dance style documentaries that I would like to see, and I've titled them. I'm going to have Zach hand out some grades on that. Plus, we count down to Thursday's schedule release in the NFL. Now, I'm hearing rumors that, we have Zach. Zach is on the line. He was really making us wait there. That was a dramatic entrance right there, buddy.
It wasn't my fault.
Your taco, did your taco order show up?
I'm not positive what happened, but basically I was connected. I was double checking the Twitter feed, and then my whole phone just shut down.
Oh, that's
and
fun.
I think I was doing too much at once, but I'm here, Brandon. I'm here. You can't keep me down. I'm going to show up for the Sunshine State Showdown no matter what. And I'm assuming you already did the intro.
I did.
So this one's for my peeps in the 904 Duval.
Yeah, a little bit late on that one, but it's okay. Hey, I was going to ask you this yesterday, but it didn't feel appropriate with the passing of Don Shula. But was the 4th with you yesterday?
It was. And I have no problem stepping to the side of one of my favorite holidays to honor a legend like Don Shula. Even if we were in Alaska, I would have wanted to do that, let alone being, in the state of Florida and down on in Miami with WINZ. With all that being said, Darth Vader's in the building, folks. And yes, you better believe I was all over my Star Wars stuff yesterday. And you better believe today I'm doing it good for Cinco de Mayo as well. I got some tacos on the way. I'm going to have a good night. I'm going to have a good time. Not too much tequila, though, because I still have a morning show. But outside of that, I'm ready, baby. I'm ready, B.
It's interesting with Cinco de Mayo today. That's a holiday that I can firmly get behind. I love Mexican food, like drinking margaritas. I'll take a shot of tequila, no problem. There's a lot of great parties and outings that you can find yourself in on a day like today. But with the world and the country being what it is right now, I just don't feel Cinco de Mayo festive. I just to me, drinking a margarita at home and eating a taco doesn't feel like I'm celebrating Cinco de Mayo. That just feels.
Don't you judge me?
I'm not. I'm just saying that just feels like a Tuesday. That doesn't feel like anything special.
Taco Tuesday on Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, it's so perfect. I'm actually having
ready.
I'm having barbecue tonight. Maybe I should rethink that. I don't know.
So last year on Cinco de Mayo, I actually was at Epcot and I stopped by Mexico and had some tequila. So it's a little different, being at home. And you're right, it is a little bit different in the spec. But it's all good, man. It's still a way to celebrate, and we're getting closer and closer to hopefully some more normalization. So I'm excited, man, and I'm gonna crush some tacos. I'll send you a picture later. You're gonna be jealous.
Ring the bell. Time for the opening round. After we went off the air on Friday, the Jags announced that they will not be picking up Leonard Fournette's 5th-year option. We had just so much stuff to get to, a lot of it Don Shula related yesterday. So some of the stuff I was going to hit on Monday's show got pushed to today, and this was certainly one of them. Doug Marrone is expecting a motivated Leonard Fournette this year, though. We'll get to that in a second, but were you surprised at all that they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, even just to maybe make it more attractive for a potential suitor out there as they look to trade Fournette?
No, I wasn't surprised. I mean, listen, they were already trying to trade the man. He's obviously become an issue in the locker room. And here's the thing with the 5th-year option that we probably don't talk about enough until a guy's actually signed, and then we slightly touch on it. They're guaranteed at a certain point in the season where even if they get hurt, all the money the following year is in their pocket. And if you talk about one position out of all of them, Brandon, that you should be terrified of that guy getting hurt, I would argue it's the running back position. Yeah. Especially with a guy like Leonard Fournette, who was made of glass when he came out of LSU and he got drafted by the Jags. So even if he had been healthy and he had been a good locker room presence, and you're like, okay, this is the guy, we want him for another 5 years or 4 years. Even if that was the case, it's still kind of scary to sign them to that 5th year. And that doesn't mean that he can't be a long-term signee. I definitely think that he's got his work cut out for him because of his current state with the team, but it's just as a scary thing to do with any position, let alone a running back, because you don't want to guarantee them that injury money.
And if you're just looking at it from an on-field standpoint, listen to these words from Doug Marrone, and I think you can kind of get a feel for, unless you have like a Christian McCaffrey or somebody like that that's clearly in the top 3 of the league and they're just different. If you don't have someone like that, one of the best things you can have, especially at a skill position like running back, is to keep them motivated. He said, Leonard's done a good job for us, obviously, really looking for the best form of him. I think 2 things in the NFL that really get you at your best is when you create competition and when you're in the final year or 2 years of these contracts. You want to make sure that you're going to stay in this league for a long time, and the whole goal is to get to that second contract. So I look at Leonard coming in here as a really motivated player. So not only does it make sense for them not to pick up the 5th-year options for the reasons that you stated, but it keeps somebody who has motivation issues highly motivated. And he was good last year, and I think he'll be even better this year for what Doug Marrone just said.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're also living in a world, though, in the NFL where guys like Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon in the last few years have sat out a full season and a half a season. So not to say Leonard Fournette's going to do that or that he's of the same ilk of those guys when they sat out. You could argue that Le'Veon was the best back in the league when he did it. You can argue that Melvin Gordon was one of the best backs in the league. And you could argue, I guess, that Leonard Fournette, healthy, could technically kind of maybe be in that conversation. But I don't think he's in a situation like those guys where he will sit out. It just wouldn't blow my mind if he did. I mean, like if Leonard Fournette came, let's say he balls out for 3 weeks and then he's got like a nagging injury, which is what happened his senior season at LSU. We've seen this play out with him before, and he doesn't want to screw up his money his first year in the league by screwing up his draft position and getting hurt. I can see Leonard Fournette still sitting out like half a season, just the latter half, and saying, oh yeah, I'm a little banged up. I'm just trying to take care of my body. So there is a risk there with it. But then again, the Jags are trying to tank anyways. So if Leonard does that, he's not hurting your team, because by hurting your team, he's helping your team, right?
Yeah, but I don't see him doing that. He knows he's got to change the perception.
He did it at LSU.
No, but this is
it at LSU.
But that was at a time that he knew that wasn't going to affect his draft status. And by the way, it didn't. He got drafted 4th overall. If he decides to pull that card again when the rap on him is that he's lazy and he falls asleep in meetings, then he's not going to get a big contract. If he wants a big contract, as big as it could get, he's going to need to go out there and play. He's going to need to put up numbers for whoever he plays for, whether it's Jacksonville or somewhere else. Well, he put up big numbers last year. If he repeats, even if he were just to repeat what he did last year statistically, add a couple touchdowns, because his touchdown total was ridiculously low last year. I think he had like 3, but he was in the 70s in catches, and he was over 1,000 yards rushing. If he does that again, he'll sign a decent contract if he plays all 16 games or close to it.
No, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I think there's also, you have to remember the other side of this, which is teams are aware that the culture is awful in Duval right now. Like Jacksonville is not a place where guys are leaving because they're bad guys. People more so look at it, and when I say people, I mean GMs of other teams, scouting departments of other teams, and they're like, well, Jacksonville's the issue more than the player, more than the guy. And that's why you've seen the Dante Fowlers be able to go elsewhere twice now and get paid. You've seen Jalen Ramsey. They cleared out guys like Marcus Peters for Jalen Ramsey last year to pay him in LA. Calais Campbell. We can go down the list. It's a situation again where I think that the perception, because of what Jacksonville's at right now, their state of the franchise, you do get a little bit more leeway room. I don't know if that perception that Leonard Fournette's a lazy guy is necessarily out there as heavily as you might believe, even based on some of the history, because again, you don't necessarily get a full pass, but you get a semi-pass if you're playing for Jacksonville these days.
He did get in a fight in Buffalo a couple of years ago too. So the perception of Leonard Fournette.
Jalen Ramsey got chokeslammed by
Okay, Jalen Ramsey's also Jalen. Again, we're talking about top 3 at their position. Jalen Ramsey's in that. Leonard Fournette is not. So Jalen Ramsey can choke people all he wants. He's still a top 3 cornerback. Leonard Fournette can't do that when he's right around maybe outside the top 10 at his position.
He's probably right around there. He's probably around 10.
He's around 10. I mean, you'd be bickering over a couple of spots, but he's somewhere between like 7 and 14, which is not where he needs to live. If you're at a position where you're replaceable, if you want a big contract, you need to be living around that top 5. Speaking of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Nick Foles looks to be in the driver's seat for the Bears starting quarterback job. Remember, he was dealt for a 4th-round pick to Chicago. I am blown away by these odds that FanDuel has come out with. Foles is minus 320 as a favorite to win the starting job over Mitch Trubisky, who also didn't have his fifth-year option picked up, who's plus 200 as the underdog in that situation. I know we usually don't hit on the Bears, but I figure the connection with Foles is at least enough to make me go, what the hell is this? How can you be that confident already that he's that much better than Mitch Trubisky? I mean, it's amazing. It's like the Bears, they have to have some type of intel that tells them that Nick Foles is more likely to win this job. And I just can't believe that we're willing to toss Mitch Trubisky in the garbage this quickly. I get that he's not Mahomes and Watson, but this is just wild to me.
Yeah, I think, it depends on how much stock you put on what a team invests in a guy, right? Like, then we've had this argument with Jameis Winston because he only signed a contract for $1 million. Does that mean that he's not going to be the backup or that he doesn't have a chance at being the future quarterback of the Saints? It's up for debate. In Chicago, same idea. Mitch doesn't get his fifth year picked up. Nick Foles is a guy, though, that they trade a fourth rounder for, and they're paying a decent amount of dough. So if you're looking at it from an investment point of view, even though they invested a high draft pick in Mitch Trubisky years ago, they're investing more in Nick Foles right now. And you know how it is, Brandon, whenever you're spending on money, it's like the gym, right? Like you have probably a house gym or like you can do stuff around the house that's similar to a gym, or you have like an apartment gym, something you can do for free, basically. But if you buy a gym membership, you're going to be more likely to spend more time at that gym using that gym membership because you're paying for it. Similar idea when you look at a guy like Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky and their issues in Chicago. And that's off, not even including the field of play and what we've seen from both those guys the last few seasons. It'll be interesting. I mean, look, for me, if I was a betting man, I would still say that Mitch Trubisky has a better chance to be the quarterback in 2021 of the Bears than Nick Foles. So we'll see. I mean, I could see because none of us think that either of the guy can hold the other one off, right? Like Nick Foles could start for 6 weeks, and I'd still be like, well, Mitch is going to end up with a job again, or at least an opportunity to keep that job again.
Yeah, the most likely player of those two to finish the season for Chicago is whichever one doesn't get the starting job. I think is probably the best way to look at it.
Like you just said, though, it could be Nick Foles, right? Like that's kind of what's being talked about.
Yeah,
so
maybe Trubisky should actually be angling for that number 2 spot. It looks more likely like he'll finish the season. By the way, I missed the gym. I know you were there a couple of weeks ago, but I think I officially missed that. When are you allowed to go back to the gym? I know the state's opening.
Never. It's closed forever. I don't know. I miss it, dude.
Chris picked an opportune time to call the first round. He's like, oh, they're talking about the gym again.
So while we brought up cardio, I'll let it be.
All right, man. You can chat with Chris about your upcoming virtual 5K during the commercial break. I have come up with, we're all into this Last Dance documentary, which is 30 for 30 style. I don't know that it's officially called one, but I've come up with in-state 30 for 30s, and I've titled them. You're gonna play the role of professor/teacher, and you're going to grade the names next. Welcome back to the show. You can find us on iHeartRadio. Download the app, hit the follow button on a variety of stations that we are on. 96.9 The Game in Orlando, 940 Wins, Miami Sports, AM 930 The Game in Jacksonville. So, Zach, you and I are in agreement here. We are in love with this Last Dance documentary. I know that you're enjoying it too. And so it got me thinking, what if the state of Florida had some 30 for 30s made about it? Now, we actually have seen these. We saw the magic moment that was created, but other stories from our state's history that we would like to see documentary style. Are there some that come to mind for you where you say, like, I would love to see that in documentary form? And I'm not talking about the obvious, because we'll get to those in a second. Is there anything that you think is maybe off the beaten path in the state of Florida that you would like to see made 30 for 30 style? Because they just do such a good job telling these sports stories and taking us back. And like when we're watching The Last Dance, I feel like I'm living in the 90s for an hour. It's awesome.
I mean, we're not including obviously the options that you put up, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like the top
before.
4 that I have, I think are pretty obvious.
They're pretty solid. I would like to kind of see the Blaine Gabbert era. No, I'm just kidding. That one I'm good with. I know.
Yeah, the ratings on that would be very good.
I mean, there's never been a 30 for 30 on the Buccaneers Super Bowl run. Like, I think that's pretty crazy. Like, think about it. This team moved on from Tony Dungy, who is a NFL Hall of Fame coach. Couldn't get him over the hump. And then not only did they move on from that, but they traded like a ton of picks to get John Gruden on board. And then they end up playing the Raiders, the team he coached prior, in the Super Bowl. There's a lot going on there. With Gruden and Sapp, I mean, there's personalities. I think that that's one that would be super, super fun to watch.
Is there anything with the Rays that would make a good 30 for 30? I mean, I was thinking of like the Stu Sternberg flirts with Montreal, that like you like something that has a bit of controversy. There's some disconnect,
though, right? Like that's one in like 20 years we can look at.
Is there anything? What about like when they came into existence? Would that be any good? Do they have anything that's interesting enough to make a documentary about?
I mean, you need drama, right? You need bad boys and evil people involved and crazy personality. I don't think so.
Hookers,
I mean, there's
stuff like that.
Like, look, you could certainly look at 2008 when they went on their World Series type of run. You could look at when Jose Canseco was on the team, Wade Boggs. I just don't think there's anything fiery enough to really build anything on.
What about the Lightning?
But I don't know. Same idea. Like, there's their championship run, which is really cool. Like, but if you're not a Lightning, and that's the thing, you have to take it. Like, it has to be something that like fans of the team would watch too, right? Because if it's something that's on the Lightning fans will watch. But would like a random Milwaukee Bucks fan watch it? Probably not. So you got to find a way to captivate people. Like, and there's been great championship runs in years for both of those programs and those franchises, but nothing that like makes nothing like the college ones that you put up. I'll just leave it at that. I do think the Bucks one would work though.
All right, so I'll give you the documentary theme, and then I'll give you the name. I've given these all have a name, like the Last Dance, Magic Moment, with 30 for 30 broke. So they all have a name. All right. So I'm going to give you the theme that is being documented, and then I'll give you my name and you can grade the name. All right. So we'll start with the most obvious, because this would be outstanding 30 for 30, whatever you decided to call it. Urban Meyer's Florida Gators in the mid to late 2000s would be so compelling. I really hope that gets done. And I have titled this 30 for 30 Circle of Trust, because that's what Urban Meyer called his inner circle. And so I think that there's a little nod there to, to the inside story and the fact that Urban Meyer always insulated the guys that he felt like were his guys: Tebow, Percy Harvin, Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah, I could see why you would title it that. I don't know if it's the best one. I mean, I think Urban Legends, anything with Urban, I think you could probably work in there. I do think that team would probably be the most watched one that we can come up with. I think that's one where, whether it's the stuff with the Aaron Hernandez documentaries that have come out since, all the things with Urban Meyer, even when he was at Ohio State, like, we've heard people nonstop bring that up once or twice a year where they're like, I can't believe there hasn't been a feature film on this Gators team yet. And I mean, look, I was there for a fraction of it, the tail end, and I certainly was close to it. It's crazy. And I think that that's one that would really captivate the country. The only thing is it wouldn't do any good for the program, right? Like there's nothing about that documentary or that 30. And that's the thing, like
the
there's a little
Tebow
drama in
side,
The Last Dance.
the Tebow side would. And Tebow had such little drama that his lack of drama is actually interesting because he was such a, like, one of the reasons that I love watching this Last Dance documentary is that it highlights just how popular Michael Jordan was. And at the college level, Tim Tebow was Michael Jordan when he was playing. And that would be really interesting to see.
So to your point, by far the most interesting part of that 30 for 30 hypothetically would be Tim Tebow talking about his relationship with Aaron Hernandez and basically saying his side of like how he dealt with these guys, being as, you know, holy as he was and religious as he was, and having these dudes that are just, you know, basically thugging it out and like having a good time and like, you know, partially being college kids, but also being like kind of dirtbags in certain areas. And, you know, there's certain stories that I could tell. I mean, I know the Aaron Hernandez one is the angle that a lot of people will kind of focus on. You know, I worked at a restaurant when I was in Gainesville, and him and his extended family, like big family, would just show up to there and other restaurants, and they just wouldn't, like, they would eat and drink and do whatever they want and then leave. Like they would never pay tabs because they were just like, we don't have to. Like Aaron Hernandez is like, I'm a Gator, I don't have to. So, and that's just one of the many stories I can tell you. There's so many intertwined little things. They could easily make a 30 for 30 that would be just insane. People would love it.
All right, so give me a grade. Circle of Trust. What do you grade that? A to F.
Ooh, I would give it a C plus.
Okay, all right.
I don't think it's bad, but I think you can come up with better ones. It's not bad, but you come up with better ones.
The next one on my list is UCF's 2017 season, undefeated all the way through, beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl, and then Danny White declared the team national champions, and then Bianchi and I got on stage and handed them a trophy. You know, it was a whole to-do. I have the title of this 30 for 30, which I think would be phenomenal, especially if you also took into account the following season and detailed and chronicled Mackenzie Milton's injury against USF. That would be really interesting to see all of that. The story of Shaquem Griffin, what he overcame in his life, and then Mackenzie Milton getting to the point where he was king of the hill and then went down with that horrific injury. I think that would be a tremendous 30 for 30, and I've titled it Claim to the Throne, a little Game of Thrones reference since the knights, you know, are sort of medieval. Claim to the Throne.
No, I like that one. Yeah, I think that would also be a really fun one to watch. That's one that I think will be exciting to watch. Like, we all know eventually the football playoff's going to expand, and who knows what else craziness is going to happen in the landscape of college football. But, you know, I could see 15 years from now it just having a lot more teams involved. Maybe you see a non-Power 5 team get in. I mean, and then like when that's all going on, I think it'd be a great time for that 30 for 30 because then it would just re-spark the debate, right? Yeah. Like, should UCF have been in there? And timing on that would help its cause. But I mean, you know, personally, I think it would be a ton of fun for a lot of people to watch, not just Knights fans.
I don't know that ESPN will ever make it because I can't see them going, hey, look at this documentary. Watch how our network used to hold back UCF along with the rest of the nation. Right?
Well, yeah. Why would they say that?
They were the ones. Yeah. Well, they're the ones that basically own the college football playoffs. So yes, that's they are part of the problem. Moving on. How about the Dolphins bullying scandal in 2013 between Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito? We don't know.
You didn't ask me to rate the name. I didn't rate the nickname.
Oh yeah, give me a grade.
B-. You're stepping up.
All right, cool. The Dolphins bullying scandal 2013, Richie Incognito apparently bullying Jonathan Martin. I think that this will make for an incredibly interesting 30 for 30. Then you had that weird story of Jonathan Martin where he was arrested for some threats that he made, and he's just sort of went off the deep end. Richie Incognito rehabbed his career and actually turned out to be a really good pro after the fact. I've called this one fish out of water.
So, love the name. I would give the name a solid B. Still moving up in the name game.
Sweet.
I have no urge to see that. Okay. I would be like, okay.
What?
Like, and that's the
you
problem.
You wouldn't watch that?
I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't watch it.
Okay, but you wouldn't be excited to watch it?
Nah, I can care less.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's some stuff there for sure, and you find out a little bit more. The problem is like, who's your superstar? Richie Incognito?
Yeah, the superstars are the problem. I'll give you that. All right, but we've also seen some 30 for 30s lack star power. They're just really interesting stories. Moving on, I've got another fishing pun. The 1997 Marlins. This is a great baseball team that was deconstructed immediately after they won a World Series. And so I think that whole story would make for a good 30 for 30. I've got this one titled Gone Fishing with no G on the end. It's got to be fishing with the,
I like
apostrophe.
that. I'd go back down to B- on that one. I think that one would be a ton of fun to watch. I mean, you have a ton of personalities. There's a championship involved. And then there's the following, the dropout afterwards. I would go with personally Off the Hook for that one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because the problem with Gone Fishing is it's like you're bringing guys in. It's not or catch and release, because they let so many guys go. So it's got to kind of be more on the other side.
Oh, that's good.
I would watch that one. See, that's one I would be excited about. I would get into that one way more than the Dolphins.
All right, cool. All right, I've got so which did you give me a grade on that one?
You didn't bring. Yeah, you got a B-, but there was another one on the poll.
Oh no, I've got more. So our guest in the next segment bailed on us, so we're gonna keep this rolling. I've got more 30 for 30 names that Zach is gonna grade right around the corner. You're listening to the Sunshine State Showdown. We're here delivering you the biggest and best stories inside of the state of Florida. That's Sports Lean. I'm Brandon Kravitz. He is Zac Blobner. As we continue our topic from the last segment, we're all falling in love with this Last Dance documentary. The ESPN does a terrific job with their 30 for 30 series. So what if we localized this and we saw a bunch of 30 for 30s come out detailing and chronicling state of Florida teams and great stories from over the years? What would we call them? I have come up with a variety of names. Zac has been handing out letter grades. I think I've got a 3.4 GPA so far, so I'm happy with that. We've come up with
second half of the semester is about to take you down.
Yeah. I feel like I get worse as this goes along too, but that's just a personal opinion, a little hard on myself. But so far we have the Urban Meyer Gators. I had named the Circle of Trust as the 30 for 30 documentary. Zac added in the what did you call it? Urban Legends. That's pretty good. UCF's 2017 national title claim to the throne. I think that might have been my best grade, or at least close to it so far. The Dolphins bullying scandal with Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin in 2013. I named that one Fish Out of Water. And then the 1997 Marlins gone fishing, since they were all eventually gone from that organization. That's what we have so far. Are you ready to pick up where we left off?
I am ready. Let's rock.
All right. So I am not trying to be glib here. I understand this is a very serious story. I actually think this would be a really good headline. Jameis Winston's 2013 season, they were undefeated, went to the national championship game against Auburn, and yet they had this dark cloud hanging over them throughout the entire season. I am a Florida State fan, and that was a really tough season for me to enjoy, watching a team that I liked rooting for, and I liked Jameis as a quarterback. Watching that team succeed to the level that they did, they were so talented, one of the best teams in college football history, yet they had this cloud of suspicion over them because of Jameis Winston's rape allegations. I'm going to call this one Turning a Blind Eye. And this has a double entendre to it. Okay, you've got the Tallahassee Police Department, which I don't think did a thorough job in the investigation. And you also have Jameis Winston's sight issues. So that's where I came up with the name Turning a Blind Eye. How would you grade that?
Yeah, you're starting to go downhill a little bit.
Okay.
I would kind of, that seems like it's a little bit of a reach. I see where you're coming from. I would kind of grade that closer to like a C-.
I had a tough time coming up with a name for that one.
I was going to give you a D, and I was like, nah, I won't be that teacher. I'll be the nice guy that's like, you got a C-, you're still passing.
You would be that teacher. Yeah, I appreciate that about you.
I don't do this often. Okay, whatever, Chris Vasquez. Sorry I didn't get D's, and I don't know that that's also still passing. Gosh. So that's our producer, Chris. I love him. He's in the feed now. Yeah, I let you in the feed, and this is how you treat me. So this is where I want to go with that, though. And I don't do this often, Brandon, but I gotta defend the Noles and Jameis a little bit. I had to laugh because it's hard for me to believe I do. I just don't think it's fair to throw them into the mix of what we're talking about here. And look, certainly I think that there's a lot of things to focus on during that season, right? You could argue that Florida State had the best, if not one of the best college football teams ever when you look top to bottom, even with some of those guys not really being as good in the league now as they were, when they were drafted, or over the first 3 years, I should say, of them getting into the league. Yeah. I don't think I would toss that in there like that, because rarely do I hear Florida State fans talk about it. And I understand that year there was a lot of turmoil of oh, is it okay? Do you feel okay with the situation? But unfortunately, I feel like those kind of things come up a lot in college athletics. I don't think it's enough to set the story apart to where I'm like, oh, I really got to see the rest of this 30 for 30. I would be interested totality-wise to see a 30 for 30 on that because of the team and the stars outside of just Jameis that were on it. But I don't think you'd get much juice, right? I don't think we'd find out much more. And
it would have to be told from a perspective that's outside of the program. Because I think it is incredibly interesting if we get any more insight, if somebody else has some sort of detailed record of just how much The Tallahassee Police Department screwed this up. How much Jimbo Fisher helped hide the truth or not dig into it enough. There's a lot of intrigue in a story like this. And I think it's something that maybe you need to wait until you get something like that on TV. Yeah. But that would be, you cannot deny the name that I came up with might be crap. That would be an incredible documentary.
So you think that there's more dirt that would be uncovered?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you're the
hold on. Okay.
You're the Tallahassee guy. I didn't say it.
Do you think that? Again, I don't know what happened, but I also know that I don't know the whole story. There's a lot more that what went down with that than we know right now. And that's the type of dirt that it's great to dig up in these documentaries. I don't know what happened.
See, the problem with those though too then is you're not going to be able to get guys like Jameis and Dalvin Cook and
Jameis can't even be in this.
Ramsey.
No.
Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to get any of these big names and stuff. So that's more of like, I could see a good investigative doc on that. It doesn't strike me as an entertaining for 30 for 30 though. That's a dark one. I mean, you're talking about
very dark.
Again, I don't want to touch it because here's the problem. Anytime I say anything on a subject like that, people are automatically going to be like, well, you're a Gator. So for you to say it, I mean, if you say it, I believe it. You're the Tally guy, so
I'm telling you right now. When I look back, it's hard for me it was hard for me to enjoy that to the level that I wanted to that year. It was. Moving on to something less grim. The undefeated Dolphins in 1972. This would make for an incredible 30 for 30 to see this documented by that team that creates those and whatever the director they put on it. I've got no pain, no gain. But the pain is spelled like champagne because they pop champagne every year. No pain, P-A-G-N-E. No pain, no gain.
I'm sorry, man. It's got to be a D. But according to Chris Vasquez, that's still passing.
You're still passing.
Yeah, that's a D. That is bad.
Okay. You like the 30 for 30 though?
Yeah. I'd watch the movie. Okay. I think. And when you're going that far back, I think you're gonna have more story to tell.
Especially now with the passing of Don Shula, I think a lot of people would be, reverential.
Well, I think we can agree that in some capacity, maybe not 30 for 30, and maybe I don't know, but like NFL films is gonna be all over at some point in the next few years, like a Don Shula doc, right?
Well, I think they already have. I think that already exists. I think they already have the life of. They do the football life.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's gonna be another one in a good way, and this is one of the ones that'll be uplifting. And you look
very
back.
So.
I mean, dude, even with the last couple of days talking to different people, about their memories and different. I've heard stories that I'm like, I would have never known that from Larry Zonka, Peyton Manning, like. It's real interesting, Dan Marino, like little tidbits. Those are the kind of things that are making The Last Dance so special now, even though we know how good that championship team was with MJ and the Bulls. I feel like you could get something similar now with Shula in that 72 team and looking back on, some of his memories.
Well, our morning show had on Dave Hyde from the Sun Sentinel, and he covered Don Shula in those days, and he was telling us a story of how back then the Dolphins were a laughing stock. The coaches that came before Shula used to come back from a break during practice with alcohol in their breath. That's how much of a tire fire they were as an organization. Don Shula turned it all around. He actually created 4-a-day practices. So guys today complain about 2-a-days, and that can't even happen anymore. They were doing 4-a-days back then in the 70s, and so he turned that around real quick. All right, I've got to give you these two, but I have to give it to you back to back. Otherwise, it's not going to land the same. Okay, the Heat with the teaming up of the trifecta of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, that would make for an incredible 30 for 30. I'm not even going to get cute with this one or have you grade it because it's just so obvious what you would call this 30 for 30. It would be called The Decision. It's that simple. Okay, I'm not going to get cute with it. That's what you would title it. But also, the Dolphins choosing Dante Culpepper over Drew Brees, detailing that story, how Nick Saban was involved, and you title that one The Bad Decision. There you go.
Awful name, but I love where your head's at. Yeah, I would watch the hell out of that. I'd watch that 5 times, especially if you can get Saban to sit down and talk about it. If you can get Dante Culpepper me and you talked about this the other day, a little, behind the scenes look for our listeners here. Dante Culpepper's a hard man to get a hold of, and he has been for
very
years
much so.
now. So if you can get him, you can get Saban, you get Drew Brees to come in and sit down and talk about, how that all kind of shaped up and shipped out. And I would gobble that right up. And then because you could show the ramifications, you get the Alabama AD on, you get the reporters that I get giddy just thinking about it. That might actually be something that I'm more interested in seeing than the Gators one that we had talked about earlier with Urban Meyer and that squad. That one would be phenomenal.
I would have a lot of fun producing that because you'd be able to tell it in a way where, like you're seeing with The Last Dance, they do this sort of timeline where they'll show you the timeline. They're in 98. They show you a clip. Then they go back. They put the timeline on the screen. And then they rewind back to like 1992. You could do something like that. But instead of timelining it, you just spiderweb it because it is seriously the spiderweb effect throughout the landscape of football. There's so many different directions you could go. And you tell the Dolphins story. You tell the Saban story. You tell the Alabama story. You tell the New Orleans story. You tell the Chargers story.
There it is. And the Chargers. And Phil Rivers. That's
crazy.
The Chargers whole thing.
It's amazing.
It's insane.
That would be a really good one. What about my last one is this era of Jacksonville Jaguar football, I think would actually make for a really good documentary in going from where the 2017 season, oh my God, they're in the AFC title game. They get screwed over by this bad call, and then everything falls apart. And I would call it Coughlin time.
I'm out. No, I mean, look, it's just way too short-lived. Well, I mean, way too small of a window. I mean, I'm sure all these guys would hop on and have different things to say. Blake Bortles obviously would be a funny guy to see in that documentary, talking about his time in that year.
Or Jalen Ramsey.
Miles Jack, was he down? Jalen Ramsey, complaining. There'd be some interesting things. I don't know.
All right. I should have ended with the Dolphins and the Dante Culpepper thing. I should have ended on top.
You had
I know. I should have ended on top. Coast to Coast is next. Welcome back to the show, covering all the biggest sports stories in the state of Florida. You can catch the show daily on iHeart, Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, 5 to 6 p.m. live, plus our podcast is available immediately after the show comes to its epic conclusion. That's available daily on the iHeart Radio app, and every day we close out the show doing a little bit of coast to coast. Before we get to it, though, I wanted to throw this prediction out there because I feel really confident in it. So I just need to get this into the universe. Okay. The Dolphins,
dangerous, Brandon.
I feel very good about this. The Dolphins have cleared a decent amount of cap space today. Albert Wilson, who's a good wide receiver, but he just gets hurt all the time. He was set to make $9.5 million as his base salary this year. The Dolphins did have an opportunity if they wanted to cut bait and save that money. They could have cut him. Instead, they decided to restructure a deal. Wilson will now earn $3 million in base salary rather than the 9.5 that he was going to make had they just kept his contract the way that it was. So they clear this money, which is great. And then I go and look and say, okay, well, where are the Dolphins right now in terms of cap space? They still, even though they spent all this money in the offseason, have more cap space than any other NFL team. And Jadeveon Clowney is still out there to be had. They just traded Charles Harris to the Atlanta Falcons. That was their defensive end on their roster. I think that they're clearing space. They've got enough money to do it. I'm predicting right now Jadeveon Clowney will be a Miami Dolphin.
Okay, that's not too crazy. I thought you were going to get a little weirder with it.
No.
Look, they have the money. There's not a lot of guys to spend it on now after the draft and you get your rookie class in. I'm all for that. I'm on board.
Let's go coast to coast. Let's kick it back to that Orlando control room. Chris Vasquez with the coast-to-coast questions.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go a little bit more crazy.
Oh, it's a prediction. Why do I need to go? I'm not going to be a madman over here. I'm just telling you, I think it's going to happen.
All right. Well, we'll stick with the NFL and stick with the Miami Dolphins. Kravitz, aside from Devontae Parker, who is the Finns' best weapon?
Oh, well, when he's healthy right now, it is actually Albert Wilson. He doesn't get a lot of pub for it, but the guy can be used in a variety of different ways. He's one of those receivers you can line up all over the field. He's fast, and when he's out there, man, he's dangerous. The problem is he just doesn't stay on the field. Matt Breida would be, I think, probably a close third behind Parker, Wilson, and then I think Breida would be third on my list.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was going to go Jordan Howard, actually, and then Matt Breida, kind of like a coin flip, 1A, 1B. I'd actually kind of give one of those guys a little bit more stock than Albert. But, we'll see. Devontae Parker's going to light the league on fire, so we don't have to worry about it.
I don't even consider Jordan Howard a weapon. He's more of like
he's the starter.
Yeah, but he's just sort of like
he's there.
He's like a dull knife,
Butter knife.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You better not draft him this year. I will give you hell.
Sticking with the NFL, Zach, who's got more touchdowns in 2020? Gronk, Chris Godwin, or Mike Evans?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with Mike Evans because I still think his big play ability is better than anybody else on the roster. Chris Godwin, very close, going to catch probably more passes than Mike Evans. I think Gronk, if you guaranteed he would be healthy and start every game, then there's an argument there. But he's going to split a lot of snaps with OJ and Cam Brate. I like Mike Evans. I hope that people in my fantasy football leagues go Chris Godwin ahead of him. Both are great picks, but I think people might be a smidge down on Mike Evans compared to the other weapons in Tampa, those two guys.
Do you think that's going to be the case? Is Mike Evans going to be drafted behind Chris Godwin in most drafts?
I think so. I really do.
I can see that happening. I would go Gronk, but that's such a scary bet to make because you don't know how many games he's actually going to play. I would go with Chris Godwin. I think what he does in the short intermediate, it's just right up Tom Brady's alley. So while you could toss the ball up to Mike Evans in the corner of the end zone, I think that's not how most of their touchdowns are going to be generated in Tampa. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin.
Let me ask you a question, Brandon. Patriots version of Tom Brady, which was better, the one throwing to Randy Moss or Julian Edelman?
Well, the Randy Moss for sure, but this isn't 2007. It's 2020, and he has a much easier time throwing to the Julian Edelmans of the world right now.
Yeah. All right. So we all know that the overseas games in the NFL are canceled. Kravitz, the Jags London games getting canceled in 2020 is what for the team?
unfortunate for their wallet. This is actually a large chunk of money that's lost for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not going over to London, folks, because they like fish and chips. They go for the money. They make a lot more of it when they go overseas. So it's unfortunate for them financially.
I'm going to go with, I think it's fortunate. I think it's a good thing for them. I think this is
Hey, guys, we're back.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the fan base will be happy. I mean, I don't know. Nobody really counts that as a home game anyways. I think the fans will be happy to have them home one more game.
I think the fans should boycott those games. Just prove a point.
I don't think fans will be happy. They don't show up to games regardless.
Ouch.
Ooh.
They certainly won't this season. They'll be one of the worst teams in the league.
Don't say that in Duval. Careful.
Moving over to college football.
Yeah, Chris, we're on in Jacksonville. You're just riling up the Jacksonville audience.
My apologies, Jacksonville. Show up to the games. Mitch Wilcox joined Mitch Wilcox joined the Cincinnati Bengals after the NFL draft. Zach, does he make the team?
No. He's probably a practice squad player for them. I mean, I know they lost Tyler Eifert in free agency this offseason to Jacksonville, ironically. But I don't think there's enough space on that roster to have him stick around. But, look, they keep him on the practice squad. He's a guy that maybe comes in if another guy gets hurt, proves himself on special teams. He still has a shot at an NFL career, but I wouldn't give it to him off the bat.
Look, I don't know a lot about Mitch Wilcox, so I can't give you a full breakdown of what he's going to bring to the table. But who's their starting tight end? Tyler Croft? Is he still on the team?
Uzma guy?
Nah, come on. You just made that up. That's not even a real thing.
No, they had the Uzma.
That's TJ Hushmanzada. He's been out of the league for years.
The same guy.
That covers it for today. Thanks for spending some time with us. If you want to reach out, you can hit us up on Twitter at Zach on the mic, at Brandon Kravitz. Shout out to our producer and statistician, Chris Vasquez. We're back tomorrow at 5 p.m. covering all the biggest sports stories in the Sunshine State. You can find the podcast now available on iHeartRadio. Just search Sunshine State Showdown. Hit that download button and follow away. Good night. Stay safe out there, Florida. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
CJ Uzama.
No, that's not real.